Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Welcome back, everyone that's been subscribed, oldies and semi-news. If you're brand new here, I do many of these types of readings and often we'll have them in the playlist. Consider subscribing. I'll do them every week as often as possible, or as often as Spirit needs us to do. This will be a general Aries to Pisces. I will timestamp in the description box for you guys. This will be for your sun sign, your rising, and your north node, okay? And it's Bibliomancy style. So we'll use the dice to see what page Spirit wants us to read from. We're only going to do 1 or 2 paragraphs per sign, just to not have a lengthy video, or for me to wear out, because I do tend to zone out after a while of reading. So we'll just get right to it, okay? All right, Aries from Levine's Dharma Punx. Let's see what page Spirit wants us to read from, and we'll see however this resonates for you at this time. Spirit, what do you have for Aries from Dharma Punx, please, and thank you. All right, your numbers for confirmation or synchronicity are 1. There we go. We have 3. And we have 9. Okay, so those could be months, dates, any type of synchronicity, special numbers for you. They might be something that comes up, so be on the lookout. All right. And okay, I'm feeling 139, page 139. We'll do a couple paragraphs. Let's see what's on 139. All right. Next page. All right. This is from the chapter called Wanderlust. Okay. After haggling with the driver for a few minutes about the price of the kamikaze ride, I agreed to pay him what I knew was more than I should have. 50 baht, 75 cents American. But at least I was rid of him. In the station, I was attacked by touts wanting to carry my backpack, but I trudged on, trying to ignore the insistent offers. My timing was lucky. There was a train leaving for the northeast where I wanted to go in 30 minutes. What I didn't realize was that it was going to take me a half an hour to find the platform it was leaving from. When I finally tracked down the elusive platform, the train was just beginning to jerk into motion. I ran and jumped on the slow-moving vessel. I made my way to an empty seat by the window to catch my breath before trying to find the sleeper bunk that I had booked for the trip. So perhaps this message has something to do with movement and travel for you. Could be literal, could be spiritual. All right. And maybe there's going to be some challenges along the way that you just, minor challenges you might have to look out for. All right. All right, Taurus. Let's see what page Spirit wants us to read for you today from. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Taurus? All right. You have 12. You have 3. And you have 4. Okay, so those numbers may be significant to you at this time or upcoming to be on the lookout for. They could be confirmation. They could be synchronicity. They could be months. They could be dates. They could be addresses. And you also have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm noticing right there. So, all right. Let me feel out the page that we'll be pulling from. All right, I'm feeling page 64. All right, it's the very last page of the chapter of Live Fast, Die Young. All right. They could have sent me away for 7 years just for the auto burglary charge, and with the 2 other felony charges and all the other misdemeanors and violations of my probation on my record. I was shocked that I was basically being set free. I knew kids who were in group homes. They still went to school and had jobs and everything. My mom wasn't as pleased as I was because the judge was basically saying, "You can't control your kid, so we're taking him away from you and placing him under state supervision." But she was also relieved that I wasn't being sent to prison. At least if I was in a group home, we could still see each other sometimes. Eventually, I would even be able to come home for weekends and holidays. I had to spend a few more weeks in the hall while they tried to find a placement for me. My probation officer was hoping to find something local so that I could be closer to my family. While I locked up, while locked up, I continued to attend the meetings with Drew and Barron. Joe never came back in with them. I guess that he had just come that one time as a guest or something. I committed to them and to myself to stay sober. At night, I read some of the books, and once in a while, I tried to meditate. But after court, when I knew I wasn't going to prison, I didn't need it as much. Instead, I spent most of my time planning about how everything was going to be different this time. I would stay away from the drugs, get a good job, maybe buy a motorcycle or old car, hopefully find a girlfriend. Life was finally going to be good. Okay, so with this message, I'm definitely getting a sense of some sort of karma-related transition, right? Perhaps even transmutation of some sort or another, energetically speaking. But it could also just be, something that had ended that wasn't good for you and moving through the process of things that are good for you, right? At least being hopeful for the future. There you go, Taurus. All right, Gemini, let's see what message you have from Dharma Punx through Spirit. All right, Spirit, what do you have for Gemini at this time? Please and thank you. All right, these numbers may have some sign or synchronicity for you, or just confirmation, okay? You have 8. You have 4. And you have 5, okay? All right, immediately I'm being pulled to combine 8 and 4 to make 12, so 125 is the page we'll pull from, okay? 125 might be significant to you in some way. All right, 125. All right, from the chapter called Lovesick. I knew I was trying to fill a spiritual void with sense pleasures, but was unable to stop myself. Not only did my compulsion not work, but it created further difficulty in my relationship with Lola. After a couple of months of slutting around, I realized that all I was looking for was love, and that Lola was the only woman I'd ever truly cared for. She had always had a fairly unreasonable sense of jealousy about my relationships with other women. When we were together, she would often question me about other women I knew, and since I had slept with several of them, when she was upset, she would often bring it up. After she found out about the women I had always claimed were just friends, quote unquote, she was more insecure than ever. When we got back together, we started going to meditation groups together, sometimes. And when my parents came to town, we went to a workshop they were teaching in Oakland. Lola was tremendously sincere about her desire for awakening, but still battling with her personal demons and struggling with depression. Her formal spiritual practice never really seemed to develop. I was really attached to making everything work out for her. I tried to take care of her, but with my own confusion and immature spiritual practice, it wasn't possible for us to maintain an intimate relationship. I felt like she was making me her higher power, and she felt like I was trying to play therapist. The result was that I ended up being really pissed that I wasn't getting what I wanted, and I needed out of the relationship. I loved her, but couldn't be her boyfriend. We split up again with the understanding that we both just needed to work on ourselves for a while. Okay, so there must be this message about ego getting involved with spiritual, right? Kind of mixing things up and kind of taking a misguided direction. Okay, I don't want to say wrong because it's never a wrong direction. Your spirit always wants you to go where it needs to go at just the right time, right? So perhaps this is about lesson learning with regards to a spiritual journey and how it needs to go. Especially in terms of relationships, right? Like in how we view relationships with each other. If we put too much expectation into others, we could get it all messed up, right? We could be misinterpreting, and that's how we end up getting misguided. So we're not really seeing the truth of the situation. We're just seeing what we want to see, right? Okay, so that might have some resonance for you as well. All right. All right, Cancer at exactly the 10-minute mark. How nice. All right, Spirit, what guidance do you have for Cancer through Dharma Punx at this time, please? And thank you. All right, your numbers are 12. You have 2. And the next one made me laugh a little. 4. So the last 2 numbers are double the first number, right? And that might have some significance for you, okay? There might be a little extra, double the amount unnecessary, 2 times, something about twice, okay? So 12, 24, 12 to 4 might have some significance for you. Another thing I noticed is you double up 1, you have 2. And you double up 2, you have 4. So you got a lot of doubles and twice going on here with this. These could also be months. They could be dates. They could be address numbers. They could be parts of a zip code or an area code or something like that, okay? However it resonates for you. All right, I'm feeling page 126. All right, this is the last page from the chapter called Lovesick, okay? I do believe Gemini got that chapter as well, so that may have some significance for you. Still very confused and hurt by what happened with Matthew, I struggled with my own spiritual practice and faith, but continued to meditate, and I became more involved in the Buddhist community. I had often thought about Ajahn Amaro and had recently read more about the Thai forest Buddhist tradition. All of the stories that Jack Kornfield told of his teacher, Ajahn Chah, and the deep and simple practice of living in a hut in the jungle was inspiring. It was so completely foreign to my way of life, and the most extreme spiritual practice I had heard of yet. As a punk rocker, I had always had an anti-establishment ideal, and these Thai monks were putting that ideal into practice. Owning nothing, relying on the generosity of the community for their daily meal, and committing all of their time to inner revolution against attachment, fear, and confusion. To me, it sounded like the perfect balance of outer simplicity and inner rebellion. So I started fantasizing about going to Thailand and becoming a monk. Being sexually active was overrated. I was still so full of judgment and fear of my desires. It sounded great to just live the simple life of a Buddhist monk. The truth is, I had been thinking of myself as a punk monk for years. Try saying that a few times fast, huh? Punk monk, punk punk. Why not take it one step further and submerge myself in the Buddha Dharma? I didn't really think I would be a monk forever, but like Jack and many other teachers I had met or heard about, I wanted to ordain for a few years and then come back and share the insights I had found with others. So there you go. Again, just some transitional, trying to find your way, make the sense out of the madness, right? You know, kind of make peace out of chaos, you know? And in the Greek tradition, Greek mythology, Eros, love, came out of chaos. So there's a little bit of resonance there with that as well. So that might help. There you go. All right, Leo. Let's see what spirit message through Dharma Punx is for you at this time. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Leo? All right, your numbers are 10, 3, and 5. So that might have some significance for you. Sign, synchronicity, confirmation. 10 also breaks down to a 1, so you can also have 1, 3, 5 there. These could be birth months, birth dates, etc. All right, so I'm feeling 108. All right. This is from the chapter called Who Killed Bambi? During the retreat, I got the opportunity to help offer the midday meal to him and Sister Sundara. I was nervous and felt awkward about not knowing how many times to bow and when to hand them the food. They were very kind and understanding about my ignorance of the traditions that surrounded their mealtime. They asked me a couple of questions about my life and my parents, I couldn't believe that I was actually talking to real monks. What a totally different universe than what I was used to. Before I left the retreat, I got to thank them and do the customary bowing 3 times. Ajahn Amaro encouraged me to keep up the practice, assuring me that it eventually would get easier. I decided I would take his word for that and made my swift departure. I felt good about what I had experienced on retreat, but was definitely looking forward to getting back to 3 meals a day, loud music, and sleeping in. For weeks I told all of my friends about the retreat with the monks at the monastery. They thought I was crazy. Why would anyone want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, do nothing all day, and then go to sleep hungry? They asked. I had the same questions. While I was there, at times it was like torture, but afterward, I was really fucking psyched I had done it, and I immediately wanted to do it again. I had seen the possibility of living happily and contented as a full-time meditation practitioner. For the first time in my life, I understood that the highest happiness comes from the simplest things. It has a pretty self-explanatory message. There you go, Leo. Have a good one. All right, Virgo, let's see what page Spirit wants us to read for you from Dharma Punx. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Virgo at this time? All right, these numbers are 5, without dropping it, 6, and 8. So they could have some synchronicity or sign or confirmation for you at this time. All right, I'm feeling 118, okay? 118 is on, let's see, where are you? It's in the chapter called Lovesick. All right. I met Lola at the Red Room, a small bar in downtown Santa Cruz where I used to go dancing once in a while. She was a friend of a friend's girlfriend. Actually, I had met her best friend Kim first, and we had been flirting a little, but I wasn't really interested in dating her. Lola has long red hair, a petite build, and angelic features. She was half Japanese and half English, but when I first met her, it was hard to tell that she was Asian at all. She just looked so delicate and exotic. She was so beautiful that she looked otherworldly. I was instantly mesmerized. It was love at first sight, but I tried to ignore and discount my feelings because, after all, she drank, and I figured she had no set spiritual practice or discipline. How could I even think about being in a relationship with someone who was not practicing spiritual principles? After our first date, when I was dropping her off at her apartment, I gave her the speech that I was used to giving girls in those days. It was great hanging out, but I need to tell you that I'm not interested in more than friendship. Spiritual practice is the most important thing in my life, and I'm practicing celibacy. I believe I may have added that I was ready to enter back into relationship, but that it would have to be with someone who was also committed to the spiritual life. Her response totally blew my mind. She began to cry and told me all about her love for God and her inner spiritual search that had led her to deep connection with images of angels and spiritual deities. She spoke of her practice of journaling and how she would often write of her vain search for happiness and feeling of homesickness for God. That was all I needed to hear. I was hooked. I longed so deeply to be in a relationship, and we were falling in love. Within a week, I had broken my celibacy. During our first lovemaking, I began to weep. The emotional connection and physical pleasure of our union was overwhelming. The bliss of sex while in love was much higher than anything I'd ever experienced. There was some confusion and hesitance. I had conditioned myself for so long to turn away from desire that it had become an ingrained habitual response. But it didn't take long for me to re-embrace my lust. In no time, we were making love daily. There you go, Virgo. Hopefully that resonates. All right, Libra, let's see what message Spirit has for you through Dharma Punx. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Libra at this time? All right. You have 12 and you have 2 11s. So 1111 might be significant to you at this time. Sign, synchronicity, confirmation. These could also be dates, months, addresses, anywhere you see numbers that are special to you, okay? All right, so I'm feeling 52. 52 might be significant. All right. Very first page of chapter 7, Live Fast, Die Young. Okay. So we'll go ahead and, yeah, we can read a couple paragraphs here. Drinking vodka and fruit punch for breakfast was always fun. Toby passed me the plastic half-gallon container, and I happily turned it upside down, drinking the last of it in a long and powerful chug. My stomach complained of hunger, but hesitantly accepted the day-old mixture of cheap booze and red-colored sugar water instead of real food. Another liquid meal to pass the time and kill pain. Toby asked me if I had any money left. He knew I didn't have shit, but now that we were drunk, it was more of a statement than a question. He was basically saying, what are we going to do now? So, rather than saying, no, I don't have any money, I said, fuck it, let's try and get some real drugs. I looked at my watch, and it was only 11 o'clock on Friday morning. We had both gotten super drunk and passed out over at our friend Bubbles' house the night before. Sitting in the park, staring at the polluted river water flowing toward the sea, Toby said, yeah, let's get shy. Getting shy was what Toby called it when we were doing hard drugs, coke or heroin. We were both feeling pretty invincible from the booze, so we stumbled out of the bushes in San Lorenzo Park, where we had been enjoying our liquid breakfast, and walked over to the footbridge that crossed the San Lorenzo River. I was wearing some weird LSD shirt that some friends had stolen from some hippie's van. It had a big flying eyeball on it that I thought was pretty cool, but I had written in thick black letters across the back, never trust a hippie. Just so that it was clear, I like drugs, not fucking hippies. Toby had a Broken Bones t-shirt on. It was a skull wearing a helmet of spikes. Neither of us had been home in a couple of days. We were filthy and hungry, but right now, what was on top of the list was getting some real drugs. I had my longboard, but Toby didn't have a skate with him, so I was just carrying it. On the bridge, we began speculating on how we were going to get money for drugs. We had both already stolen everything we could from our families, and it was a little bit early to find someone looking for weed and rip them off, so we both agreed that our best bet was breaking into cars in the parking lots downtown. Maybe we could find a purse or wallet, or maybe we could steal a car stereo that we could trade for drugs down at the flats. The biggest question on my mind was, coke or heroin? I liked the body rush and warm swirling effects of dope, but I missed the bell-ringing head about to explode high of a hit of coke. I guess that's why I found speedballs to be so attractive. 2 highs and 1 injection. The full bell ringer mind explosion following by the comforting vomit and heat flush of the chiva. For a moment, the thought entered my mind that I had a piss test the next week, and that maybe it wasn't a good idea to do dope so close to it. But then I realized I had already missed 2 appointments with my probation officer, who probably already had a warrant out for my arrest. Not to mention that Toby and I had been court-ordered not to associate with each other. I had gotten a dirty piss test the last 2 times I had gone in. That's why I stopped going. So why was I even thinking about it? I must have been drunk. All right, I know there's a message in there for you somewhere. Maybe it's just confirmation, all right? There you go. All right, Scorpio, let's see what message Spirit has for you through Dharma Punx. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Scorpios this time? All right, the numbers are 2, 1, okay, and 10. All right, so 2110 might be important. 2110, those could be synchronicities. And I am feeling 211. All right, page 211. Almost there. All right. This is from the chapter called Die, Die, My Darling. If you're unfamiliar, that's a Misfits band reference. It's one song. All right. I do believe Metallica covered it. They did a pretty good cover of it. All right. After a 2-day drive through the desert, I made it back to Santa Cruz, and to my surprise, Mika was there too. He had decided to move back to the West Coast. New York had been fun, but he was ready to get back to the lazy days in the California sunshine. Joe was back from tour, so for those final days of my practice, we had most of the crew back together. We all hung out, going to the beach, sitting around sharing stories of our adventures and joking around. I took some time and wrote out a mock will, leaving my records to Joe, my books to Vinny and Mika, and the rest of my belongings to my siblings. I asked in my will that my tattooed skin be removed and made into wallets for all of my friends, and that a fruit-bearing tree be planted on my grave. My mom and I took some long walks on the beach at low tide, throwing the stick for her dog, and talking about how wonderful life had become for both of us. I expressed my deepest gratitude for all of the love and support she had shown me over the years, and told her how happy I was that she had overcome her own struggles and come out the other side an incredible woman and mother. The last night of my year to live practice, June 30th, 1998, the night that I was to die, I made a huge feast for my mother, brother, and sister, and Vinny, Jennifer, Joe, his girlfriend Michaela, and Mika. At dinner, I read to them my own eulogy and thanked each one individually for all that they had brought to my life. We all stayed up late, looking at old pictures and telling stories of our lives together. A little after midnight, everyone went home, and I went to bed. After contemplating all that I had learned and experienced in my year of investigating death, I died peacefully and awoke the next morning reincarnated, ready for the next teaching. There you go, Scorpio. Have a good one. All right, Sagittarius. Let's see what message through Dharma Punx Spirit has for you today. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Sagittarius at this time? All right, your numbers are 8, 10, and 6. So those could resonate for you. It could be confirmation, synchronicity, important dates or months, addresses, anywhere numbers show up for you significantly, okay? All right, immediately I was already feeling 96 before I even called out them, just in looking at it. Page 96. So 96 might also be significant to you at this time. This is from the chapter called No Spiritual Surrender. All right. When I finished, I felt like I had just dropped a 100-pound bag of shit that I had been carrying around my whole life without even knowing it. When I left Sean's place that day, he suggested that I take it easy, that I spend some time reflecting on what we had just done. He said I might feel a little different in the coming days, and he was right. I did. I had skateboarded over to his house that afternoon, and when I left, the sun was just about to set, so I skated down the street to a park that overlooked the boardwalk and the beach. I felt like a kid with brand new shoes on. My skateboard was so light under my feet, and everything looked to be so different. Sitting alone on a bench in the park, I watched the sun setting over the ocean, and I heard a group of kids playing basketball off in the distance. I just sat there thinking about my crazy life. I must have been sitting there for quite a while, because by the time I left, it was very dark and starting to get cold. Over the next several weeks, I prayed every day for the willingness to let go of all my defects of character and shortcomings, all those things that had come out of my inventory. The more I prayed and paid attention, the more I saw how much of my life was lived out of fear. It got to the point where I felt like every word, action, and thought I had was somehow coming from fear, greed, lust, or anger. It seemed like I was just one big walking, talking defect. But gradually, as I continued to pray about it and be aware of what I was saying and doing, some of the more gross shortcomings began to fade. I stopped lying and stealing. I began to be a little nicer, even to people I didn't like very much. It became less and less important to be cool and tough, and more important to be kind and honest. Here you go, Sagittarius. All right, Capricorn, let's see what message through Dharma Punx Spirit has for you today, please. And thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Capricorn? All right, your numbers are, you got 10. Just wait. You got 10 again. So 10 might be important, okay? And 7. All right. So those could be birth months, anniversary months, dates, addresses, but could also be spiritual numbers for you because you do have 1010 and you have a 7, right? Okay. So, I'm feeling 117, all right? 11-7, right? Okay. And this is from the chapter called Lovesick, chapter 14, okay? Matthew and Monique had their ceremony up on a hill at his home on a sunny day at the beginning of summer. At the wedding, Jason, Drew, and Barron and I talked about how weird it was that they were getting married. I didn't really know Monique because I had never worked for Matthew's record company, but all of the other guys had worked there, and they were all talking about what a psychopath she was. After the wedding, Matthew moved in with Monique in Scotts Valley and asked me if I wanted to rent his place up on the mountain and share it with another student named Vanessa. Vanessa and I knew each other from meetings, although not very well. I decided to move in there because Matthew was saying he thought it would be good for me to live with someone else from our spiritual community. At the time, I was living alone in a beautiful cottage in the mountains in Aptos. I had the perfect setup with cheap rent and a nice place all to myself. Matthew's place was twice as much rent, but I had a new job at the hospital and was making good money so I could afford it. I asked Matthew if he thought I was ready to be back in intimate relationships. He said that he was very pleased with my progress and level of understanding of spiritual principles, and that he thought that it would be fine if I felt moved to enter back into a relationship as long as it was based on love and mutual commitment to spiritual practice. There you go, Capricorn. Hope that helps. All right, Aquarius. Let's see what message from Spirit through Dharma Punx is for you today. Please and thank you, Spirit. All right, the numbers you have are 10. As I drop it and get it all over the place, that might be significant to you this time. There might be a little bit of a spill. All right, I'm still not getting it. There we go. With my nails being the way they are. Next number is 4. And next number is 9. So 10, 4, 9 might be significant to you at this time. And I'm feeling 113. Nice. That was instant. Instant math and instant visual. Love it. All right. So this is from the chapter called Who Killed Bambi? It was ramen noodle soup and some fresh vegetables for dinner. I had been attempting to go vegetarian. I was still eating fish sometimes, but I had renounced all the other flesh foods. I also had some fresh sourdough bread for sandwiches the next day, but thought it would go well with my veggie noodle soup instead. The fire was blazing, and I got the water boiling quickly, so I added my carrots, onions, and broccoli. The noodles and soup base went in, and about 5 minutes later, I had a fragrant pot of campfire soup. I let it cool down and then dipped in a piece of bread to get started. My meal tasted incredibly good. I intentionally ate very slowly, trying to taste every bite and remembering to put the spoon down between each mouthful. Some time ago, my dad had been speaking with me about mindful eating. Hadn't he said that he thought it could be a powerful practice as sitting meditation? The taste of the noodle soup under the evening sky certainly brought me into the present moment, as much as paying attention to my breath ever had. I was just about finished eating, and the twilight was well set in. Something was moving nearby, rustling in the bushes on the hillside above me. I looked up and saw a deer, carefully picking its way down the slope. I became very still, sitting, watching the deer as she continued her walk down the hillside. She stopped a couple of times to nibble at some leaves or to straighten up, lifting her head to listen for the sounds of a possible predator. My mind was strangely calm. I was amazed at the sight of the lone deer moving toward my camp. I had never been so close to a wild animal before. A couple of experiences I had as a kid flashed into consciousness, smelling the stench of deer jerky hanging to dry in the garage of our neighbor's house in Santa Fe when I was 7, and when I was 11 being sickened by the sight of a deer killed and gutted by my friend Ricky's father in Colorado. Now looking at that exquisite, delicate living being that was almost at my tent, those disturbing memories evaporated. All right, there you go, Aquarius. Have a good one. All right, Pisces. Let's see what message Spirit has for you through Dharma Punx today. Please and thank you, Spirit. What do you have for Pisces? What message? All right. Your numbers: 4, 12, and 6. So that might be significant for confirmation or signs and synchronicity. Could also be birth months, birth dates of any kind, addresses, and so forth. Okay? So I am feeling page 166. That might be a significant number for you as well. This is from the chapter called Wanderlust. I arrived in Kathmandu a few days before Lola, but I had started feeling sick on the plane and didn't make it out of my room very much. At one point, I was actually throwing up and spewing diarrhea at the same time. It was one of those times when I was grateful that the bathroom was so small that I could reach the sink while still sitting on the toilet. When I was feeling a little bit better, I began to explore Kathmandu. I found a nicer room for us and rented a motorcycle to meet her at the airport. I'd been anticipating Lola's arrival for so long. It was hard to believe it was actually happening. Even at the airport while I was waiting for her flight, I noticed thoughts of doubting that she would really show up. As she walked down the corridor, I saw her from afar, and a great joy arose that was mixed with the anxiety of my expectations. We embraced each other, and tears filled both our eyes. She was trembling in my arms, and for a moment we were both speechless. I whispered promises of love in her ear, and we had a long look at each other. I felt naked and exposed. The intimacy was almost more than I could handle after so many months of being alone. Before beginning the small talk about the trip, we just stood there hugging and kissing. She looked great. Her hair was much shorter than it had been the last time I saw her, and it was bleached blonde. She was wearing a light-colored summer dress that slightly revealed her beautiful figure. For the first couple of days, we stayed in the motel room, making love and cuddling for hours at a time, interrupted only by the occasional need for food. We spent about a week in Kathmandu talking about plans for our future together, our wedding, our children, and our love. We visited some of the main temples and Tibetan Buddhist centers, but now I felt like I was just another tourist on vacation with my sweetheart. There you go. Have a good one, Pisces.